High Commander Vexthor stood at the bridge of the Zaxian flagship Eternal Dawn, his scaled fingers drumming against the crystalline control panel as he studied the blue planet below. Earth, as its inhabitants called it, seemed unremarkable from orbit. His mandibles clicked in amusement as he reviewed the preliminary reports again. Primitive nuclear technology, fractured political systems, and they haven't even established a proper lunar colony, he muttered to his second-in-command, Carl. The Council was right. This will be the easiest resource acquisition of the cycle. Carol's sensor stalks wavered uncertainly. Commander, the behavioral analysis team has submitted some concerning observations about their entertainment media and historical records. Vexthor dismissed the concern with a wave of his primary hand. Their violent tendencies are precisely why the Council chose them. A species so focused on internal conflicts will never unite against an external threat. Begin the standard procedure. The Zaxian ships descended through Earth's atmosphere in broad daylight, their cloaking systems disabled in a deliberate show of force. They positioned themselves above major cities across the globe, following the time-tested strategy that had worked on 17 other worlds. Within hours, Dr. Rajesh Patil of the International Space Agency found himself facing the alien delegation in New Delhi. The Zaxians had chosen him as humanity's representative based on his published works on theoretical xenobiology. Their research had been thorough, but their conclusions couldn't have been more wrong. Your species will benefit greatly from Zaxian guidance, Vexthor declared through the translation matrix. We offer you advancement, order, and purpose. In exchange, we require only your cooperation in resource extraction and colonial development. Dr. Patil adjusted his glasses, his expression unreadable. And if we decline this generous offer? The question caught Vexthor off guard. None of the previous species had ever considered declining. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation that the humans couldn't yet recognize. Surely you understand your position. Our technological superiority is evident. Of course, Dr. Patil replied calmly, his fingers moving swiftly across his tablet. I'm merely asking for clarification. Please, continue explaining your terms. What Vexthor didn't realize was that Dr. Patel's tablet was connected to a hastily assembled global network. Every word, every demand, every subtle threat was being analyzed by thousands of experts worldwide. As the Zaxian commander outlined his species' plans for Earth, humans were already adapting, planning, and preparing. In orbital labs that the Zaxians had dismissed as primitive, scientists began examining the alien ship's energy signatures. In supposedly outdated military bases, strategists were developing countermeasures. In fractured nations, leaders were forming unprecedented alliances. The first sign that something was amiss came when Vexthor's ship detected unusual energy signatures from Earth's polar regions, probably their primitive fission reactors. He assured his increasingly nervous crew. The second sign was the complete absence of panic in the human populations. Where were the riots? The mass hysteria? The immediate submission they had seen on other worlds? 1 week after first contact, Dr. Patil requested another meeting. Vexthor agreed, expecting to receive humanity's surrender. Instead, he found himself facing not just the scientist, but a panel of human leaders, scientists, and military commanders from every major nation. We've reviewed your terms, Dr. Patil began, still wearing that same unreadable expression. And we've prepared our response. But first, we'd like to show you something. The display behind them lit up with technical specifications that made Vexthor's inner eyelids snap shut in shock. The humans had already reverse-engineered the principles behind Zaxian shield technology. Impossible. They'd had access to the ship's external signatures for only 7 days. Your terms are unacceptable, Dr. Patil continued. However, we're prepared to offer alternative arrangements. You see, we've noticed some inefficiencies in your ship designs that we believe we could help you improve. As Vexthor stared at the humans' proposed modifications to his own ship's systems, he finally understood the Council's crucial mistake. They hadn't found an easy target for resource extraction. They'd awakened something far more dangerous, a species that thrived on challenges and turned threats into opportunities. The game had changed, and Vexthor had a sinking feeling that the humans had only begun to show their true capabilities. The Zaxian High Council's emergency session erupted into chaos as Vexthor's report played on the quantum feed. Elder Cathax's bioluminescent patches flashed in patterns of distress and disbelief. "Impossible," she declared, her ceremonial robes rippling with agitation. "No species at their development stage could reverse engineer our shielding technology so quickly. Your data must be flawed, Commander." Vexthor's holographic form flickered slightly as he responded. "With respect, Elder, that was merely the beginning. In the 2 weeks since my last report, the humans have demonstrated capabilities that—" He paused, mandibles clicking nervously. "Perhaps it would be better to show you." The display shifted to footage from Earth. What had initially been dismissed as primitive orbital platforms were now bristling with new technologies. The humans called them adaptive defense satellites, and their purpose became clear when a Zaxian scout ship attempted to approach Earth without proper clearance. The satellite's response was instantaneous. Instead of using a traditional energy weapon, it released a cloud of what appeared to be simple metallic debris. The scout ship's sensors dismissed it as space junk, until the cloud suddenly organized itself into a crystalline lattice that perfectly matched the frequency of the scout's shields, passing through them as if they weren't there. "They call it smart dust," Vexthor explained as the Council watched the scout ship be disabled without suffering a single casualty. "They developed it after analyzing how our shields interact with different materials. But that's not what concerns me most." The footage shifted to a human manufacturing facility. Where the Zaxians had expected to find primitive assembly lines, they instead saw something revolutionary. Humans worked alongside machines in perfect synchronization, their supposed technological backwardness revealed as deliberate minimalism rather than limitation. "They don't believe in technology for technology's sake," Lieutenant Ixel, the fleet's chief analyst, explained as she joined the transmission. "Every advancement they make is purposeful, tested, and refined. They have a saying, perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away." The council chamber fell silent as they watched humans modify Zaxian designs, stripping away layers of complexity to reveal more elegant solutions. Where Zaxian ships required quantum processors for shield modulation, humans achieved similar results with crystalline matrices that operated on simple resonance principles. "But how?" Elder Cathax demanded. Their scientific database showed no evidence of such capabilities. Vexthor's hologram seemed to age as he responded. "Because, Elder, we only saw what they published officially. What we didn't realize was that humans have something called open source development. Millions of them work on technological problems simultaneously, sharing solutions freely across their global information network. While we watched their governments and institutions, their population was collectively solving problems we didn't even know we had." The footage shifted again, showing Dr. Patel in what the humans called a garage, a simple workspace that nonetheless contained equipment whose purpose the Zaxians couldn't even guess at. He was working with a group of students, none of them over 20 Earth years old. "The biggest mistake we made," Vexthor continued, "was assuming their fractured nature was a weakness. Instead, it's given them countless different approaches to solving the same problem. They don't need a unified scientific authority because they've turned their entire species into one massive research and development engine." The council watched as, in the span of their meeting, the humans announced 3 more innovations based on Zaxian technology, each one simpler, more efficient, and more elegant than the original. "There's something else," Lieutenant Ixel added, her sensor stalks drooping. "They've begun asking questions about our propulsion systems. Elder Cathax, they're not just learning from our technology, they're improving it. And they're doing it faster than our predictive models can track." The council chamber erupted in debate, but Elder Cathax raised a hand for silence. "Commander Vexthor, what are your recommendations?" "Honesty," Elder, complete and absolute honesty with them, because they've already detected the secondary fleet approaching from the outer system. And there, he paused, searching for the right words. They're excited about it. They're treating our attempt at invasion as what they call a learning opportunity. As if to punctuate his point, a notification appeared in the Council's feed. The humans had just published their first draft of improvements to Zaxian faster-than-light technology. They'd labeled it with what the Zaxians were beginning to recognize as characteristic human humor as version 0.1, alpha test. The implications were clear. They weren't just learning from the Zaxians. They were surpassing them, and they were just getting started. The secondary Zaxian fleet never made it past Jupiter. Admiral Yura Nazari stood on the bridge of the EDS Prometheus, humanity's first true warship, watching as her tactical display showed the approaching Zaxian vessels. Unlike their predecessors, these ships came with weapons primed, clearly expecting a primitive defense. What they found instead would reshape their understanding of warfare itself. All quantum observation pods in position. Her XO, Commander James Wu reported. The Zaxians still haven't detected them. Yara allowed herself a small smile. The pods were barely larger than satellites, built using principles learned from studying Zaxian cloaking technology. But where the Zaxians used complex energy fields to bend light, humans had discovered that quantum entanglement could achieve the same result with virtually no energy signature. They're approaching the Ganymede threshold, James announced, initiating Protocol Prometheus. The name wasn't chosen randomly. Like the mythological figure who gave fire to humanity, they were about to give the Zaxians a lesson in innovation they'd never forget. The quantum pods activated simultaneously, creating a web of intersecting fields that replicated the exact frequency of Zaxian shield harmonics. The incoming fleet didn't even notice as their own shield frequencies were subtly altered, decimal point by decimal point. "Sir," one of the Zaxian bridge officers aboard their flagship reported, "I'm detecting unusual variations in our shield metrics." Fleet Commander Zextal dismissed the concern with a wave of his secondary appendage. "Local radiation from the gas giant. Maintain course." That assumption proved costly. By the time they realized something was wrong, it was too late. The humans had already completed their real work, not attacking the Zaxian shields, but modifying them. "All ships, execute Helios Protocol," Yara commanded. Across the void of space, thousands of small devices previously dismissed as debris suddenly activated. Each one emitted a precise frequency that matched the modified Zaxian shields perfectly. But instead of trying to break through them, these devices did something far more elegant. They turned the shields into solar collectors. The effect was instantaneous. Every joule of radiation from Jupiter was suddenly amplified and channeled directly into the Zaxian ship's power systems. Their own shields, meant to protect them, became the conduit for their defeat. By the first egg, Zextal breathed as warning signals blazed across his bridge. "Their weapons, they're not destroying our shields. We're turning them into batteries." Yara completed for him over an open channel. "Your ships now have more power than their systems can handle. I suggest you power down before your circuits overload." The Zaxian commander stared at his displays in disbelief. The humans hadn't just defended themselves. They'd turned his fleet's greatest strength into a liability. And they'd done it without firing a single traditional shot. "Wait," he transmitted desperately. "You could have destroyed us. Why this approach?" The response came not from the Prometheus, but from Dr. Patel, speaking from Earth. "Because, Commander, we wanted to learn from your ships, not destroy them. War is wasteful. We prefer to solve problems." The implications hit Zextal like a gravitational wave. The humans hadn't just been defending themselves. They'd been conducting the largest engineering test in their history, using the Zaxian fleet as unwitting participants. In the days that followed, as the disabled Zaxian ships were towed to Earth's orbital stations, the true extent of human innovation became clear. They hadn't developed traditional weapons because they didn't think in terms of destruction. Every system they'd created had dual purposes. The quantum pods that modified the Zaxian shields were also the foundation for a new communication network. The energy collection system they used to disable the fleet was already being adapted for deep space power generation. In the Zaxian High Council chamber, Elder Cathax watched the reports with a mixture of horror and fascination. "They turned our invasion fleet into a research opportunity," she whispered. "All this time, we thought we were testing them. But they were testing us," Vex Thor completed. "And Elder, they've already begun sharing their improvements to our technology with our own scientists. They're calling it open source warfare. Defeat your enemy by making them your collaborators." The Zaxian military doctrine, built over millennia, had just been completely upended by a species they'd dismissed as primitive. And somewhere in a garage on Earth, a group of students was already improving on the designs they'd captured, not for war, but for something the Zaxians had never considered: the pure joy of making things better. The Galactic Assembly had never seen anything like it. Representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations watched in stunned silence as human engineers dismantled and reassembled a Zaxian quantum drive in real time, improving its efficiency by 300% with technology that could be manufactured using basic industrial facilities. Ambassador Neela Rangarajan stood calmly at the center of the assembly chamber, her simple blue sari a stark contrast to the ornate biomechanical suits of the other species. "As you can see," she explained, "the principles of quantum propulsion aren't actually as complex as we've all been led to believe. The complexity was an artifact of our approach, not the underlying physics." The Murith representative, a crystalline being who had previously dismissed humans as organic primitives, vibrated in frequencies indicating extreme distress. "But this defies all established conventions of technological progression. Species must develop quantum mechanics before achieving faster-than-light travel. It is the natural order." Neela's smile carried centuries of human wisdom. "With respect, Ambassador, that's like saying you must understand how birds fly before building an airplane. Sometimes, the simplest solution is to look at the problem differently." In Earth orbit, that different perspective was already reshaping the balance of power in ways no one had anticipated. The human approach to technology, what they called aggressive optimization, had turned their solar system into the galaxy's largest open research facility. Dr. Patel, now heading the United Earth Science Coalition, led a tour for a group of alien scientists through what humans casually called the garage, a sprawling space station that looked more like a collection of interconnected workshops than a traditional research facility. "You mean anyone can just come here and work on projects?" asked Tilara, a young Zaxian scientist who had defected from the military research division. "Of course," Dr. Patel replied, gesturing to the diverse groups of humans and aliens working side by side. "The only requirement is that all discoveries must be shared openly. We find that collaboration produces better results than competition." In one section, a team of human teenagers worked alongside Murith crystalline engineers, developing new applications for quantum entanglement. In another, Zaxian biologists learned from human medical students about the unexpected benefits of cellular imperfection, how allowing for mutation and adaptation could create stronger systems than perfect replication. But it was in deep space that humanity's greatest impact was becoming apparent. The Prometheus, now joined by a fleet of similarly innovative ships, had begun what they called the Open Space Initiative. Instead of claiming territory or resources, these ships traveled to developing civilizations, sharing technology and knowledge freely. "You're giving away military advantages," protested a Zaxian military advisor during a strategy meeting. "This defies all logical doctrine." Admiral Nazari's response became famous across 5 sectors. "The only true military advantage is having no enemies to fight. Every technology we share creates another potential ally, another mind that might solve the problems we haven't even discovered yet." The impact was revolutionary. Within months, civilizations that had been locked in resource wars for centuries found themselves working together on human-inspired innovation projects. The Mirith and the Zaxians, ancient rivals, jointly established research bases on their contested worlds, turning battlegrounds into laboratories. But perhaps the most profound change came in how these civilizations viewed themselves. The human concept of open-source development wasn't just changing technology, it was changing cultures. We used to think power came from keeping secrets, Tilera explained to a gathering of young scientists from dozen species. The humans showed us that real power comes from sharing knowledge and letting it evolve naturally. In the Galactic Assembly, Ambassador Rangarijan received daily requests for human guidance on everything from governance to agriculture. But it was her response to a question about human superiority that truly captured their philosophy. "We're not superior," she stated firmly. "We're just very, very good at learning from our mistakes and sharing what we learn." The real breakthrough wasn't any single technology. It was realizing that progress belongs to everyone or it belongs to no one. The assembly chamber erupted in debate, but the truth was undeniable. In less than a year, humanity had transformed from a potential conquest into the galaxy's greatest teachers. And they weren't doing it through force or dominance, but through an insatiable desire to make things better and share what they learned. As Dr. Patel often said to his increasingly diverse classes of students, the universe is too big for any one species to explore alone. But together, we can solve anything. 5 years after first contact, the Sol system had become unrecognizable, and yet, somehow, more fundamentally human than ever. The rings of Saturn now hosted the largest collaborative engineering project in known space, the Interspecies Innovation Hub, affectionately known as Humanity's Garage Sale. Elder Kethax, once the strongest advocate for Earth's conquest, stood aboard the observation deck, her scales now bearing the iridescent marking of a knowledge seeker, a radical departure from her military background. Besides her, Dr. Patel contemplated the massive structure stretching across Saturn's rings. "You know what still amazes me?" Dr. Patel mused, adjusting his now ancient glasses, a quirk he maintained despite having access to advanced optical enhancements. "No one saw this coming. Not even us." The Innovation Hub was a testament to humanity's most powerful weapon, their ability to turn adversity into opportunity. What had started as a defensive measure against invasion had evolved into the galaxy's premier center for technological and cultural exchange. Ships from hundreds of worlds arrived daily, not to trade resources or establish diplomatic relations, but to share ideas. In one of the hub's countless workshop spaces, a historic moment was unfolding. A young human mechanic named Jin Park was showing a group of Mirith crystalline engineers how to repair quantum drives using parts from old Earth automobiles. "Sometimes the best solution isn't the most advanced one," Jin explained, wielding a 20th century wrench with practiced ease. "It's the one that works with what you have." The Mirith, whose civilization had never considered using primitive tools, watched in fascination as the hybrid repair technique proved more effective than their standard protocols. This scene was repeated countless times across the hub, ancient wisdom meeting cutting-edge science, creating something entirely new. Admiral Mazzari, now the coordinator of the United Species Defense Initiative, had transformed the Prometheus into a mobile teaching hospital. The ship that once stood ready to defend Earth now traveled the galaxy, responding to crises and teaching civilizations how to solve their own problems. "The greatest security," she would often say, "comes not from having the strongest weapons, but from having the most friends who know how to solve problems." The impact of humanity's approach had rippled across the galaxy in unexpected ways. The Zaxian Empire, once focused on military might, had reorganized itself around what they called the human principle, the idea that true power came from sharing knowledge rather than hoarding it. In the Galactic Assembly, now relocated to the hub, Ambassador Rangarijan presented humanity's most ambitious proposal yet, the Universal Knowledge Initiative. The plan was audacious in its simplicity, to create a galactic network of innovation centers, each combining local expertise with the human approach to problem solving. "We propose," she announced to the assembled representatives, "that the true measure of a civilization should not be its age, its technology, or its military might, but its contribution to the collective knowledge of all species." The proposal passed unanimously, a first in the Assembly's history. But the real revolution was happening in countless small moments across the galaxy. On a distant mining colony, a human construction worker taught alien engineers how to use Earth's ancient Roman architectural principles to build more stable structures. In a struggling agricultural world, traditional farming techniques from Earth's history helped solve food production issues that advanced technology had failed to address. As the 5-year anniversary of First Contact approached, Elder Cathax finally asked the question that had been haunting her. "Why didn't you destroy us when you had the chance? Any other species would have taken revenge for our attempted invasion." Dr. Patel's response captured the essence of humanity's impact on the galaxy. Because every problem is an opportunity to learn, and every potential enemy is a future friend who just doesn't know it yet. We didn't see invaders. We saw teachers who didn't realize they were coming to learn. The Interspecies Innovation Hub grew into a symbol of this philosophy. Its workshops and laboratories became known not just as places of technological advancement, but as crossroads where different approaches to understanding the universe met and merged. The humans had a phrase for it: "The rising tide lifts all boats." As night fell on the hub, maintained on Earth time as a courtesy to their original innovators, the observation deck filled with beings from across the galaxy. They came not to negotiate treaties or establish trade routes, but to share stories, exchange ideas, and participate in what humans called brainstorming sessions, a concept that had become the galaxy's most valuable export. Perhaps, Elder Cathax reflected, watching a group of children from different species working together on what appeared to be a gravity-defying sculpture, we didn't underestimate humanity's technology after all. We underestimated their capacity to turn the entire galaxy into one giant collaborative project. Dr. Patel smiled, his aged face reflecting the light of Saturn's rings. "The truth is, we're all students and teachers. It just took someone to build the classroom."